Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Word up.
I thought I was
How you
having
doing,
a
man?
stroke there, Drew.
Why?
Because you were playing the music, but if you see in the comments, I went to respond to Gerald here on his big win. So I
Yeah.
had YouTube open. Well, YouTube is like 4 seconds behind. So the music was playing twice, but like overlapping. And it was really disorienting. I'm like,
No,
do I
I've
die?
done that. I've done that
Am I in
too.
purgatory?
Yeah.
So,
I actually
ooh.
keep my YouTube tab muted just to avoid that if I ever have to go there to share a pod or whatever.
Did not care for that.
Yes, let's start out with Jared's commentary because I wanted this to be a happy celebratory podcast, as I think a lot of people did with the NFL season ending and Kansas City Chiefs being champions. But the mass shooting in Kansas City today absolutely sucks, and our attention should in some way be kind of shined towards fixing this problem. I don't know what to tell you,
it's
man.
just a fucking bummer even going and like reading replies and
awful.
comments. Like some people had some good posts about it today with some ideas, and you read the comments and it's just like, well, that's someone has a good idea for like a positive gun control idea, and 9 people in the comments are just like, this is why that won't work, this is why that won't work.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, guess what? We live in an imperfect world where nothing is ever going to work perfectly. Yeah. But it's like saying, hey, guess what? Seatbelts will never save everybody. So we should, let's not even try. It's some silly, specious reasoning, honestly. We should probably try something. I mean, there's an Onion article. I don't remember the exact headline, but it's basically like, oh, why does this keep happening to us? Says person in only nation that this regularly occurs in. It's like,
yeah. I don't.
And
on
a positive note, congrats to Gerald, who, if you can't see it, if you're listening in the podcast forum, you're not seeing the YouTube comments. He hit the fourth quarter square on his board for $5,000. 2 and 5 is traditionally a really shitty combination. Like
dead square.
You get 2 and 5. You're going to, you might even just throw your board away. You're like, well, fuck, I'm dead. That's not gonna pay out. So, congrats to the low probability of a 2-5 coming through for anyone who had that.
Yeah. Well,
and we hope hopefully there's no more fatalities. Up to 2 now. I think they said.
Good God.
Children in the hospital with gunshot wounds. It's just a rough scene. There's a lot. Obviously, it's a nuanced issue with a lot of different things that need to be addressed.
Dude, I gotta be honest with you, man. Being at the Mandalay Bay in Vegas, like that shit was very present last week. Like going up the elevator, and you're like, oh, this was where the guy shut up the country music festival, and the security for everything on Media Row was like really heavy duty. Like they did a very good job of keeping everybody feeling like they were safe and comfortable. But did
you have to fill out the FBI shit?
Oh, sure, for sure. We got vetted, big time.
So I was on the NFL site the other day to apply for credentials to the combine. And I see that like, oh, if you're certain events, it's like you got to do an FBI background check to do this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the joke would be that there was definitely some people that were on Radio Row that I'm surprised made it through that.
Oh yeah, they were. They definitely were. And I honestly, like, my mood, I'm not in a great mood to talk about football anyway, because I didn't like lose my ass on the championship game, but I didn't do well. And if the game had just ended 19-16, like, oh, buddy, we would have finished. We would have finished on a very high note for the season, but it was not to be, as the third and fourth conversion. Which, goddamn, I don't know why Shanahan didn't take a timeout. I haven't watched now the replays of what it looked like what the all 22 looked like, what he was saying on the sidelines. Like, I know the 2-minute warning just happened, but just call a timeout, man. Like, you guys weren't ready to snap that ball. And that was the most important play of the game by far, because if they convert that, it's over. The game's over effectively. And by not converting it, it was, put air under the Chiefs' wings.
Yeah, my obviously feeling good because my only actual position, I did play some Chiefs because I have the weird thing where if I write about it or talk about it, I have to bet it a little at least. And in the newsletter, I said, hey, it's a Super Bowl. I'm going to pick a side at a total. So I went under in Chiefs. So I played some Chiefs, but my position that I talked about most of the week with anybody, Super Stream, Pizzola Stream on here, I said I did like the under. So I had some under 47.5. It drifted away from me towards the end of the end of the market. There was a little oversteam. There were some 48s over the weekend, juicy 48s. It's not like it moved a ton, but either way, it's not one of those where it's like, oh, I don't feel good because this is moving against me. It's the Super Bowl market. Honestly, it moves a little funny. So the fact that I was able to get a under home in a multi-score overtime game where both teams scored in overtime. Thank goodness. Thank goodness we don't kick those extra points anymore. That would have been very, very painful for a lot of people, or an amazing win for some, I guess. You got to look at it through both sides of the lens, but it was nice to get that home. It was, I know in the Saturday newsletter, I put orange was my guess, but then like 2 hours later, 3 different people are like, hey, Chiefs are purple.
The Chiefs purple.
And I mean, at some books it did get beat up to, minus money. Honestly, it went past the 50% mark.
Yeah.
But I did find some spots to get down some okay bets at like 2-1 on purple. So, I mean, if you really believe that info, and I did because it was from a few decent sources, getting 2-1 on the Chiefs is obviously a nice little way to add some equity to that.
I'll be totally candid with you. There's nowhere I can bet any of that novelty shit anymore. I don't do the runaround with paperheads and the agents and that at all.
Yeah, it's basically like if you want to bet props,
yeah,
it has become exhausting. If you want to bet props, you have to be going out and shaking the trees, talking to people. Hey, where'd you get your Ace account?
Yeah.
Would you vouch for me? Hey, do you have any?
And you got to do it long before the Super Bowl. You can't
it's something.
You're not going to spin those up. Yeah, you're not going to spin those up and get paid on that shit.
Nobody's going to be like, I signed this guy up and he killed me on props for the Super Bowl. I'd be happy to pay this guy.
Oh yeah, what kind of props? Oh, the anthem and the halftime song and
all the known shit.
Oh, well, that's
so you got to bet the coin toss too. Just throw them a bone, but no, it has become incredibly difficult. Gone are the days of. I mean, 5 dimes was taken, I believe it was at least $250 a pop on the anthem, and they used to hang 4 alt lines. So, let's say it was Gladys up in Detroit, whatever hers were, it was a minute 10. They would hang a minute 10, a minute 12, a minute 14, a minute 16, and a minute 18. Like all 4 of those, and they were all full, limit, not like 10 grand or anything, but you could bet 250 on all of them. So if you had a good source, you could just pop 5 of those. The last one would be like plus 250, and
start out like 2,500 ahead.
You were in a very good spot there. So.
I mean, RIP Tony Book, all the insane stuff that we used to get there, and Bookmaker has pivoted away from offering any of that. So that's where I do 99% of my action nowadays anyway. So it is what it is.
My big hope is that we still see decent liquid markets come July when our eyes turn to Paris.
You want some more belly aching? Some more. That's because again, like I'm in a pretty bad mood. Like I have a lot of fucking work to catch up on. I've been working my ass off.
I was in Hawaii.
No, I'm not in vacation anymore. I'm not doing media in Vegas anymore. I'm not going. I'm not fucking off in Vegas. I'm actually trying to work. I don't have anything planned until March where we're going skiing. So there's like it's going to be a long time till I get a little more R&R, I guess. But and it's cold here. It's like 50 degrees in LA, which is nasty. But the real bellyache I want to do is like Bitcoin couldn't have waited like, I don't know, 3 days to turbo fucking pump. Like,
funny timing.
Yeah, fuck this. Like, god damn it. Like, I wanted to get my freaking roll into Bitcoin as soon as the Super Bowl was over. And now I'm effectively paying a premium to do that. And I am pissed about it, man. Like, god damn. This is like a good 20% haircut.
It kind of makes you want to look back at the historic market the last 5 years and see what it did around the Super Bowl and see if you would be better off not betting the game and just putting it in if it takes this early jump right away.
I would have been this year by a lot of money. Like this.
Yeah, I'm curious. It's worth looking.
Oh,
I did want to segue kind of first topic here. I want to segue off that just the timeouts. It's not the same because the 3rd and 4 is the other side of the ball, but the firing of Steve Wilks by Shanny today.
I didn't love his work.
At first, I was like, this seemed obvious. Like, this was obvious. This is such an obvious move. But the more I looked at it, like, defensive coordinators get fired when the defense is bad. Like, hey, we've had a hey, you're Joe Barry. Guess what?
Yes.
The defense has stunk for 3 years. It's been underperforming. This was weird. And I understand it. It's still to a certain point, but this is a middle of the pack defense by all accounts. Like any stat you look at, DVOA, APA, whatever you want to look at, it was kind of just in the middle of the pack. It wasn't a bad defense. So maybe it was relative to
they underperformed their talent.
Salad days of
they underperformed
Saleh and I mean, but Saleh and Demeco, it's a tough act to follow. They didn't give him a lot. They just gave him the 1 year. He suffered the Hufanga injury. They underperformed a little up front, but the more I thought about it,
the underperforming up front and at the linebacker level, I think is why this was such a.
It's just crazy how quick they pulled the plug. It was one year.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I mean, people are. I think people. And actually, this is like just a broad commentary. There's a lot of reactionary post Super Bowl stuff that is like, let's find some who gets the blame. You lost. We gotta blame someone, and it's tough to blame Wilks for that performance because the defense was pretty damn good on Sunday. They were especially good in the red zone on Sunday. They forced 2 turnovers, and they came up with some good key pressures. But they did what every defense who faces Mahomes in the high leverage moments did, which is capitulate. And I don't think you hang that on Wilks necessarily, but there was moments obviously late where Shanahan wasn't happy with what Wilks was calling. The weird timeout usage in overtime, and just in general having his guys kind of not really prepared for the Mahomes scrambling and maybe some other small stuff around the edges, but I would say that there's pretty clearly like not a great working relationship between Shanahan and Wilks, and this reflects a longer kind of internal strife between those two. And so if he wants, Shanahan wants to move on or find somebody else who kind of has his more of his vision or passion or just in general and thinks that the vets in the locker room needed another voice, then they got to change course. We heard middle season, like the vets in there, Warner and those guys didn't like what Wilks was doing. And there was like a huge disconnect, and he was up in the booth and, and the guys down in the field didn't really love what he was calling. And he had to move down to the field to kind of build a relationship. And that's not good. And like, if you don't have the support of the locker room full of vets, then you're screwed. And if you don't have the support of your boss, the head coach, then you're screwed. And so he was screwed. He was a dead man walking. You want to move on. Who fucking cares? Like the end point is fair, which is the Niners defense underperformed their talent this year, being a middle of the pack unit. Yeah.
My only other point, and besides the obvious, is like, hey, nobody ever gets a chance anymore. Like, and if the relationships weren't good between him and the players and him and the other coaches, especially Shanny, obviously that factors into it huge, but it is crazy how quickly we're able to move on, especially from, it's like, hey, this wasn't a bad defense. This was a defense that maybe would have gone into the 4th quarter without allowing a Chiefs touchdown if it weren't for that punt being muffed. I mean, it was kind of having a decent game. I don't know if I can fully blame him for anything, but the biggest part is and this is victim of your own success stuff, but he's at a huge disadvantage to get a job now. He's going to have to catch on as like a linebackers coach or something because, the DC spots are full. And then the 49ers now have to figure out, are we, where are we going with this? Because most of the coordinator, musical chairs is kind of settled down at this point. You're bringing in fucking Rex Ryan.
Yeah, I know, but like
shit ain't happening.
Yeah, but like you think, I don't know, you think that whoever they hire, good or bad, is going to change your number for them next year? Probably not.
No, and that's an interesting point. I kind of want to flip over to that. I've seen some people. This is something I hate and love at the same time. I love seeing people talk about it because I love the juice around this league. I love how excited people are to bet on a team to win a game that's 364 days away because people are putting in Super Bowl futures like that day. It's fucking wild. It bothers me because it's such a long time to tie up some money.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you think that number's only going one way, I guess I don't hate it if you set aside part of your bankroll for that sort of thing anyway. But it's funny, some people are really keen. I think I've seen 4 different posts about like the Browns. Hey, the Browns, and this is on my list of things to do next week. But man, we've seen this time and time again where the teams with great defenses last year just they seem to find their way to the middle of the pack the next year. That really worries me about Cleveland because we didn't really see like, Watson started to come around before he eventually had to pull out completely with the injury, but a great defense rarely repeats, it feels like, anymore, whether it's injury, attrition, just free agency, the people, offensive coordinators figuring out things about your defensive scheme. So like I kind of sat and thought about Cleveland for quite a while and really did scare me off a little.
I mean, I think I need to do a broader reflection on the quarterbacks they got to face this year and whether there's going to be an uptick in quarterback quality next year. They were a little bit lucky on the health front because Garrett didn't miss any time, I don't think, even with that shoulder injury that was pretty serious.
Yeah, he came
Denzel Ward missed a decent amount of time. They don't lose their D coordinator. If Schwartz had gotten hired away, maybe I'd be a little more, year over year, defense isn't going to be sticky. Kind of a
That's worth looking at too, though. Schwartz has a big enough sample as a coordinator.
That's true. You can
maybe it's good to look at his second, third year.
If there's improvement or regression, that will be very interesting.
Just giving you guys homework. This is fun stuff to dig into.
There's a lot of.
You don't want to get into the draft quite yet.
Yeah, I can't imagine placing a future of her next year for Super Bowl right now for any reason at all. If I got matched and got to settle in Bitcoin, maybe that I would consider it. But the idea of locking up US dollars for the next 365 days is fundamentally absurd.
I joked around about this. I tweeted about this. I said, what if Mike Evans, is able to sign with Kansas City?
Sure.
3-1 might be laughable at that point.
Yeah. I mean, Kansas City's giving you a lot of signal, though, that they don't really give a shit in the months of September, October, November. Like they're in Patriots dynasty territory now where they can use the first 4 weeks of the season as extended preseason. So they don't need to flip the switch until January now. Apparently that they keep learning that they can wait even longer to flip the switch, which means there's really no emergency whatsoever. In fact, I bet you, I don't have these numbers in front of me, but I bet you the longest price you could have gotten on the Chiefs was probably on the eve of the playoffs for the title, because they had to go through Buffalo it was known that they had to go through Buffalo and Baltimore. And in fact, if you did a rollover, like Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, San Francisco, you would. So if you locked up future money on the Chiefs this time last year, well, my goodness gracious, did you fail basic economy?
And that's the tough part too, is that it's tough to see, obviously injuries happen. It's impossible to predict which quarterbacks we know like 3 or 4 good starting quarterbacks will probably miss a big chunk of the year. It just happens. It's impossible to figure out which ones, but Baltimore should be a good team still. because they kind of did it on, I joked with someone about what Kansas City did, not having a true wide receiver one, basically turning a rookie into like, wow, this is the best of the bunch. We'll use him more. But like, it's like when you go to that video game that you beat and put it on expert mode and try to beat it again. That's kind of what the Chiefs did. Like, hey, what if we did it without wide receivers this year?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be funny? But that like kind of, Baltimore got a lot out of some wide receivers. I weren't sure they were gonna. If Burrow plays the whole year, that's a good team. I just shit on them, but the Browns still could be a good team. Mm-hmm. Miami still has an explosive offense. Buffalo can still come around. Like, it is awful hard to just lay a price on any of the AFC teams.
Yeah.
Again, 360 days out.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of thoughts here. I have two questions for you. Like three Super Bowl related questions. The three most interesting things I think to talk about coming out of the Super Bowl. It's not legacy of Mahomes or Andy Reid. It's not, will Shannon ever get over, blah, 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 blah. There are kind of three major things that I'm curious your opinion on. And then we can move on to other kind of process related thoughts about the way that the 2023 season went and what else, how we need to sharpen things and, what worked, what didn't, blah, blah, blah. So let's take these three for the big game. And if you have any others you want to bring up, by all means.
Sure.
But the first one is, this is a softball, but did you feel like the missed extra point influenced things positively or negatively for the 49ers in the moment?
Man, somebody tweeted it. I thought about it right away.
Yeah.
And I wrote about it a little. It felt like it was almost a boon in the moment.
Yeah.
Because there was about 7 minutes left. And you'd just seen I believe the drive that was scored on was basically like, hey, everybody got involved.
Yeah.
Like McCaffrey got involved. He'd been running.
And the Chiefs defense looked a little gassed.
Yeah. Like I think there was like 5 different receivers that caught a pass, plus McCaffrey was looking good. It didn't feel like, hey, we're going to be able to slow this team down and get the ball back down one score again. Like if they'd have been down by 4 with 7 minutes left, once they get down there, I really think Andy's playing with 4 downs to try to score a touchdown.
Of course.
The fact
aggressiveness goes up immediately.
It's a similar conversation that we've had about the second drive in overtime. Like the calculus changes a lot based on.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we're going to get to that one. But the calculus changes so much because I can't kick a field goal here to make a one-score game. They might just go down and score a touchdown. They might even go for 2. I don't know if Shanny would actually do that, but to go up by 9, it's a death knell at that point. And it definitely changed how Andy had to call that drive, being up by 3, or being down by 3 rather than 4.
And it kind of took a little bit of the aggressiveness out of their sales.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They went for the.
So it's weird how it probably helped San Francisco to force overtime at that point.
Yeah, and okay, that was, by the way, before Kansas City got an answer field goal. Mm-hmm. But on that answer field goal drive, they were it didn't really feel like they had kind of ramped up aggressiveness yet. They didn't feel like their backs were against the wall yet. Down 4, I think you are a little bit more likely to get some aggressive play calling there. So I think that could have cut both ways, in favor of the Niners ultimately. The 3rd and 4 we talked about, I thought was the most consequential play of the game.
This is interesting for DC.
Staley for DC in place of.
He might be one of those guys. But just quick aside, I love the Zimmer hiring. I think Zimmer is a genius when it comes to putting a defense together. He was just a bad head coach because nobody likes him. Like you can't be Belichick and not have any of the success. You can't just be a grumpy snot rocket piece of shit. But I think he can run a good defense. So
okay.
All right, where were you going?
Second question is a combination question. There's been a lot of ink spilled on this already, and there's some people that are very steadfast it's 50-50, and some that are very sure it was one way or the other on what to do about winning the coin toss in overtime. I have a specific opinion on this, which is that if you are Shanahan and you elect to take the ball, you better have a more aggressive game plan for that drive than what you did.
I think we're of the same mind here.
Okay.
The more I've thought about it, I don't think there is a definitive, like, it's not like 60-40, you should take the ball or you should not take the ball. I think it's a lot closer to a 50-50 proposition. I haven't gone and simmed anything out, and I haven't seen anyone who put really good numbers yet to. But a big part of the calculus of the game theory of that is, it's like prisoner's dilemma. You don't know what the other guy's going to do. You don't know, and to find out after the fact that if it went touchdown, Andy was planning on going for 2 on the second one to avoid the giving you the ball back with sudden death.
Sure.
That was interesting, but
hey,
I agree for sure.
I honestly, but I don't think. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to see someone actually going for 2 in that moment, right?
Because
Andy had a play. He could have done that at the end of regulation and gone for the thunder kill and touchdown, and he elected to kick a field goal with 6 seconds left. So whatever Andy Reid says he was going to do, I call
the difference being
we'll see it. Yeah.
So I think the difference is, like, the going for it at the end or kicking the field goal is, you live to see another day. There is still the overtime, which is, you were in a game that was close to a
scenario of kicking the XP to tie it 7-7 in overtime, as opposed to going for 2.
You don't know how overtime's going to go. You could have the choice between the ball or not, and you could, and like you said, he had people breaking that down. He must have thought he had an advantage in overtime, I believe. Whereas, if it went touchdown for the Niners and then touchdown, he must have had, more confidence in the 2-point conversion than he did for a defense that had played 70 minutes or, been out there for obviously half of that because of, they don't play when they're on offense, but a defense that had been out there for almost 5 quarters, stopping CMC from getting them within, field goal range at that point, which I think that checks out. I think you have a good enough play in the hopper that's probably 65-70%. And I don't think stopping the 49ers from getting within field goal range is anywhere near that percentage.
Okay.
So I don't hate that. And again, back to the first thing you said, I agree. With the aggressiveness part and that's where I was going. It says, I don't think it's so cut and dried. You should take the ball. You should kick the ball, but you got to have a plan. And like you said, if you are taking the ball, you cannot be playing for a field goal.
Yeah.
I honestly,
100%.
I think, especially against Mahomes and how that team had looked in the fourth quarter, how that team had done historically over the last 5 years in similar positions, a field goal is basically a turnover. Like at that point, you need to put yourself into, we will go for 4th and 1s instead of kicking this. I know Moody was great that day, but that's not predictive. Like he is still kind of spotty overall. I wasn't super excited about trotting him out for some of the long kicks. So I would have wanted to go for it. I would have wanted to score a touchdown and been a lot more aggressive on my play calling if I was Shanny. And, I think the fact that the spread was pretty close. Who knows how much they've taken that into account. Maybe they have their own power ratings. But, if you're a massive underdog in a playoff game and you go to overtime, obviously it's way different as well.
Yeah, Pat Mahomes is on the other side of the ball. That's true. But you had stopped him in the red zone, 4 times? Like you had successfully stymied the Chiefs. They ended up, let me see, what was the red zone number? 2 of 6 in the red zone, which is, so they were 1 of 5 in the red zone at that point. You had stopped them 4 times. Real quick.
Oh, bless you.
Don't know what gave me the sneezes, but excuse me. On the drive, the Niners' first overtime drive, some of the plays that Shanny was calling and the degree of success they were having, I was like, fuck yeah. Right. Like obviously like the penalty got them out of that kind of bogged down. Everybody looked like they were going to puke on their shoes. And, like they go cut to Brock Purdy's face and he's like, he looked like he was going to absolutely, Don McNabb out there. And they got the first down by penalty, and then everybody kind of cooled off after that. And they had a really, really good drive through the middle of the field. And I was like, okay, Shanahan took the ball because he knew he had the goods to get this touchdown. And he's, his defenses stopped Mahomes in the red zone already twice. Or already 4 times. Like, all they need is 1 out of 2. Either stop them from getting the touchdown in the first place or stop the 2-point conversion. Like, I get it. Good deal. Good job. And then once they were inside the 20, it was like, okay, like, now you are very clearly in 4-down territory. Like, whatever you're calling on 3rd down has to be to set up 4th down if it doesn't get the conversion. And on 3rd and 4, they go with the really well called play. It gets blown up. And, as I was watching, I was like, okay, nice. He's doing a little misdirection. He's making them think they're going to pass. This is probably going to be some sort of scramble, just to get them to, see if they can convert. They're at the 9-yard line, for fuck's sake, on 3rd and 4. Like, you can't, you're telling me your offense can't get 5 yards right there and through 2 downs. Like, I really didn't understand why they didn't call a play on 3rd that was higher likelihood to make the 4th down conversion very gettable and then punch that thing in, because
that
taking
was
the field
problem.
goal at
I think,
the 9-yard line.
The first part of the drive was good.
Yeah, I think every fucking text and message I fired off as they were out there trotting out the kicker was, well, game's over. Like, it's over. You just fucking lost. You just lost. Because now what you just did, whether you realize it or not, is you have forced the Chiefs' hand to 4-down territory to get a field goal, right? And it's like, the minute you're on your heels, you're cooked. Like, best case scenario, you stop them at some point and they elect to kick a field goal, which didn't feel all that likely at that point. But best case scenario, you stop them. If you go, like, it's hindsight polluted like a motherfucker. I know this, but like, the fact that they had a 4th and 1 on their first drive in overtime, the Chiefs, and elected to go for it, and called an amazing play on that play. Like, that, they're not calling that play if their season is on the line, because a non-conversion is an automatic loss. Like, they're not calling it. And that was like, the biggest you literally gave them an extra down on every series to try to get a field goal to tie you.
From an evaluation standpoint, and try to be a neutral bystander here, do you think it's better or worse for the problem solving we're trying to do that 4th and 1 existed? Let's say the Chiefs had no 4th downs on that drive, and we didn't get to see, because matter. If that 4th down would have been closer to midfield,
yes,
and it would have been marginal, like, hey, maybe they do go for this, it's different. But the fact that, you're right. In if they had the ball first, deep in their, not deep, but deep enough in their territory, they're probably not going for that. No, and at that point,
they're at the 9 at 3rd and 4, man. Like, literally, all I'm saying is, on that 3rd down, like, scramble, run, anything. Like, get a little closer or convert on the ground. I don't care. And
this would have been interesting too.
And so, yeah.
I would have loved. I wasn't
absolutely
again. I didn't want overtime to keep going because I wanted my under.
Sure.
I wanted a touchdown or a turnover, I guess.
Sure.
And I really wasn't seeing a turnover.
No.
But yeah, you wonder, and the message on the screen I posted here, would the Chiefs had gone for it in field goal range on 4th and short, if they would have been closer, If there would have been another 4th down, I think they would have.
I think yes. If it was
because
4th and
the fact
short,
that they were willing to talk about going for 2 after a touchdown, I think they would have been aggressive there as well.
I think you gave you put them in 4-down territory the minute you kicked that field goal. And so you've now given your opponent an extra down on every fucking series, which is a disaster. And the alternative was, if you don't convert it at the 7-yard line, you get stuffed and you don't get the yard you needed. The Chiefs from their own 7, like, I think it's more likely that the Chiefs are going to score a touchdown from their 25 with 4 downs at their back than it is that they're going to score a tying field goal they're going to score the game-winning field goal and stuff you from their own 9 with 3 downs, right? We're saying, like, can they move the ball 70 yards with 3 downs, kind of mentality to kick the game-winning field goal versus move the ball 75 yards.
I'd agree that's lower. I mean, it still feels like they were fucked either way. It really had the same feeling. And I hate to bring this one up, but the Bills game, like once the coin toss was, and that was the old overtime rules. And once the coin toss happened, you're like, oh, this game is over at this point. And when they trotted out the kicker, it was the same thing. Like, oh, like the Chiefs are going to get the ball probably after a touchback, and they're probably going to go down and score at this point. Like how they looked in the fourth quarter, it really, because I tried to just imagine, I'm like, how would I feel if this game ended on a Mahomes turnover or some fumble? I'm like, it would have to be a fumble. I just don't see Pat screwing this up. It just really, like you said, it felt over when they kicked that field goal.
Yeah, I think there's enough loss aversion.
Good game.
That playing with 3 downs and trying to go 60 is harder than playing with 4 downs and trying to go 75. I really do. And
it's hard to prove that out, but I
think it's fair. I mean, it's simple for sure. We can talk about it at off season. We'll do a whole experiment on a couple of things that happened in this game and have some definitive math answers and uncertainty bands around it. Okay. The one thing we're not going to be able to sim and have uncertainty bands around and ever really get an answer to. My one takeaway that I was kind of ruining, not giving more weight to in the run up to this game was the experience differential, right? Like, I kind of don't think it's an accident that the Chiefs were like completely composed and with it and, very much able to perform at the high leverage moments at the end of this game when the Niners also were tripping over themselves for the majority of the balance of the first 3 quarters of this one. The self-inflicted wounds for the Niners were just tough to swallow as a Niners backer for so much of this game. And that's 2 teams in a row now, or 3 teams in a row if you really want to include the Bills, which I don't hate including because of the drops and the missed field goals. But is there a boogeyman factor here with the Chiefs where other teams are just kind of losing focus and making mistakes, and the experience that the Chiefs have and the knowledge that they're the champs, like they're just not doing that as often? Or is this results-based nonsense?
I mean, think back to anything you've done in life, think back to your swimming career. Like the first time you were in a big meet where you're like, I have a chance to win this meet.
Sure.
And like how that felt. And then later in your career, after you'd won some meets, even, I'm thinking like even high school, like after you'd won, you'd got some medals in your chest.
Sure.
Thinking back, like the nerves just aren't there. Like you've done it.
Yeah, of course.
It's not like you don't have that thing. What if I go through my whole swimming career and never win a first place medal? Like,
of course.
You don't have that. You don't have that. Boy, Shanny has that in spades, obviously. And it's so hard to quantify momentum and clutch gene and all these things that we talk about. But I think the playing with house money thing has, there's definitely proven heuristics around this where people do find a little more, I don't know, calmness, clarity, whatever you want to call it. The fact that, Andy has rings, Pat has rings. Most of the players on this team, maybe some of the first year guys don't, but like the fact that you've done this, you don't have this, oh my God, what, like the Dan Campbell quote, what if this is it? What if this is the only chance we ever get to win the biggest, the biggest prize in our industry, in my career? Whereas they've all had it, they've all got it done. It doesn't feel like, oh, the pressure's all in this moment. Like it's silly to think about if we lost, oh, well, we have some rings already, but it does weigh on you. Like it does factor into, and not only that, like just the preparation around the hoopla, knowing like going through all the 2 weeks of interviews and bullshit and garbage talk and like, dealing with the practice schedule in a weird spot. Like, they're practicing. One team was practicing at a college. The fact that you're going through a practice schedule in a different city for that long, for just, the creature of habit thing we talk about, where these teams are used to the travel, they're used to the grind of the road, and then mixing it up like this, the fact that you've done it before probably matters. So I definitely think it's not something you can quantify, but it certainly has to be one of those bumps, when you talk about. And like I said, I made the number 2.1. I was fine with the pricing, and I still said, I'll probably just take the plus money. I didn't want to be the full, bell curve guy and just say like, The Niners offense is good in the middle, and then just bet Pat as a dog. But I think that factor, the uncertainty, and just taking the underdog in that spot didn't hurt. So, okay. And obviously, again, I like the under a lot better. I just kind of needed a pick at that point, and I was fine being the guy who finally came around, because I certainly bet against the Chiefs a couple times this year.
Sure.
And it didn't work out all that well.
Sure.
So I did not get even on that one.
I think Mahomes in particular, and because so much of the kind of high leverage stuff goes through the quarterback, it's very fair to assume that there's enough data at this point that Mahomes has kind of the Alex Honnold, kind of brain function where he is not afraid of anything.
I gotta find this email. Drew.
There are no endorphins washing over his brain in the moments where he should be scared or he should be concerned. He is very, very, very cool in those moments.
I'm gonna find an email here quick.
Yeah, I just think I didn't really have any kind of number around the Niners choky factor, right? As opposed to the Chiefs clutchy factor. Like, I'm just saying, like, I didn't think that this was going to be surprise, CMC is going to fumble and they're going to botch a punt return, and they're going to be Trent Williams is going to be holding
like 5 fumbles. Hey,
yeah, like
the penalty, then you do have to have a little luck, because these were two teams that were damn near evenly matched. You do have to have a little luck to come through in a game like this. But going back real quick to the clutch, to the built different, wired different, brain functions on a different level.
Sure.
I want to give credit Tyler Dunn, who writes one of the newsletters I like to read. It's called Go Long, if you want to go look for it. But are you familiar with the Whoop? The wristband that measures your sleep patterns, your heart rate, all that. It's similar to like an Apple Watch, but I'm going to read directly from his. It says, "It's no cliche to say Mahomes plays with the same cool as Jordan," referencing some Michael Jordan references he'd made. "It's science. He slows everything down to his speed on his time. Back during the 2021 season, the tech company Whoop tracked the quarterback's heart rate. At the apex of the craziest game that season, the divisional playoff win over Buffalo that prompted this overtime change, Mahomes was freakishly calm each time the Chiefs took offense with the season on the line. His heart rate spiked on the sidelines, but once they took over with the ball, it returned to like his normal calm level," which is like, when I read that, I'm like, fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like I when you're nervous and you like feel a little floaty,
I
think I'd probably barf. But it's crazy, the tough, so when he would go take the ball, when he'd get back out on the field, get into his zone, like, hey, I'm a quarterback now, I'm not watching, his heart rate would just drop to like a normal flow zone, it called it, which is kind of fucking sick.
You know what I'm talking about with the Alex Honnold thing, right? You seen Free Solo?
Yeah.
Well,
that guy, and that's another guy. Just way different.
Well, they do the brain scan on him, and they were like, "Yeah, the part of the brain that where everyone else feels fear is nothing's happening, right? Like that, it's not working, right? And that is what allows him to be able to operate so, effectively when a mistake is death. Like the human condition is not meant to." To be able to overcome that, and he does, and I'm sure that Mahomes has some of that same shit. So, all right, just to clear up, Tico was asking my point on the end of game stuff from Shanahan and why I was mad was I felt like the correct decision on 3rd and 4 was to gain yards and then to go for it on 4th down inside the 10-yard line, and then you are forcing the Chiefs to either drive with 3 downs per series.
Mm-hmm.
To get a field goal to win, or you're forcing them or if you get the touchdown, then you are forcing them to drive 75 yards in 4-down territory, right? Those are the 2 outcomes there, as opposed to what you did choose, which was you forced them to go 30 yards with 4 downs per series. And if they elected to, the full 75 with 4 downs, if they wanted to end the game, like you put the entire, you lumped you gave them all of the,
twice
the paths, all of the
2 drives that it's like, hey, have 4th down. It's on us.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Which is very dangerous against an incredibly effective offense with an incredibly effective quarterback. So.
Yes. Correct. Anyway. Sucks for the
Was that
Shane
two?
Niners.
Or do you have a third? What was your
No,
third?
the third one was is there a boogeyman factor that these teams that haven't grabbed the ring are shooting themselves in the dick. The Ravens did it so obviously, and then the Niners to do it in the first half, because like realistically, like if the Niners just play a cool normal game in the first half of this one, they're up by like 21 at halftime. This game is fucking over. And I don't understand how it was a 7-point margin because of the mistakes that they made. How good
is play-by-play data in NBA that you could scrape into like R?
Impossibly good. Like better, okay. Like as good as you could possibly.
Anyone, I'd love someone who does that, who pulls it to check on this, because this is the only analog I can think of. Is I wonder what the free throw percentage is. Let's say under a minute, under 30 seconds, whatever you want to cut it off as, shooting a free throw, the final free throw of whether it's 2, 3, whatever, to tie the game versus shooting a free throw when you're tied to take a 1-point lead. Yeah, I feel like there's a huge difference in those two, kind of the same way you're talking. And what I said with the Chiefs, hey, we've been there. Hey, we got this to fall back on the pressure. The inverse has to be true. I mean, it has to gnaw on you. Again, the same question is this our only chance? We've seen it before. Are we Marinoing? Are we ever going to get back? There's so many good teams. It's so hard to do this. It's so hard to stay healthy, have the ball bounce your way, have the good luck. Beat the best teams in the division, beat the best teams in your conference and get here. Like, that surely weighs on you. And I guess Shanny's getting better, because I thought he called a really good game up until probably near, the end. Mm-hmm. He obviously the biggest things that happened were some holding calls at really bad spots and a muffed punt that hit a guy that was kind of engaged with another player. No. And it was a lot of bad luck, honestly. It wasn't Shanny stuff, but once that bad luck puts you in a bad position late in the game, then he made a couple of blunders. So I mean, he made it further. It's like making it to the last level of the video game. Maybe the next time he sees it through has the luck on his side, because truthfully, like, if they get a good DC in there, it's still a roster that's not going to see the turnover that's going to keep them down. Like, they should probably be in the NFC title game next year. And I know there's some up and comers, and yes, the Packers and the Lions and the Cowboys and the Eagles and even the Rams and some of these other teams are very good, but
yeah, that's the problem.
It's still like, this should be the class of the NFC if they want to be.
Yeah, I think.
So I think he gets another shot in the next couple of years.
I think so too, especially because Purdy's on an amazingly cost-controlled deal, so they do have a lot of
thing.
Yeah.
You're paying that like $700 a year,
and honestly, like, the likelihood that when you get back, everybody's a little bit cooler and a little more experienced and a little bit more capable. Like, the fact that Purdy did not have a Christmas, a Black Christmas shit show in this one is good for them having the chance to get
heartening.
Back. It was heartening, right?
Purdy played pretty well.
You can build on this. Purdy was pretty good. You can build on this. Who do you think would have been the Niners MVP if they won that game?
God, and I hate to even say this, because I know some of you motherfuckers had some big tickets on it. Jauan Jennings probably had a shot. He had a passing and a receiving touchdown. That's kind of crazy. The fact that he had some big catches late, like, it feels like it would have been really, if they released the voting on that, it would have been close between the three of them, because some people definitely would have given it to CMC, maybe as a body of work kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And Purdy gets votes because he's a quarterback, but it's Jennings would have drawn some votes, but honestly, in the end, it feels like Purdy didn't have. Did he have a touchdown pass?
Yes, he did.
He did have the one.
He
had the one. He had the one to Jennings, and then Jennings threw the other one. I was trying to think if that was a run or not, but Purdy didn't have like the stat line, I guess. So I think it would have been CMC. And that's more of it. As much as you're not supposed to.
Yeah, shit, man. He had 8 catches for 80 yards plus 80 on the ground and a touchdown. So that was a 160-yard effort out of him and a touchdown.
You're supposed to you're supposed to base it on the game, but that's such a like, holy shit, this guy was so important for this team all year. And let's give him this.
Yeah. Okay. Any final closing thoughts on the Super Bowl or anything else takeaway wise that you would do differently next year? Or you would do differently if you had to redo them this year?
I finally did watch the halftime show.
Why?
So I just wanted to see.
You just wanted to know.
It was okay. Yeah. Ludacris was good.
Yeah. Did you track down my Starlight Express reference and see how absurd the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical about the men on skates who were trains was?
Do you want to hear something fucked up?
You saw that? You saw it?
No.
Oh.
But my wife and I were sitting in the TV room yesterday. Couldn't you're too tired to start a movie. It's too late. She can't make it past fucking 9. She's old as shit. Mm-hmm. So I said, do you want to watch a TV show? And we weren't currently watching anything. So I popped on like Netflix, Hulu, whatever it was. I said, ooh, what about a Better Call Saul rewatch? Because that's a really, really good show. So we watched the first episode of Better Call Saul. And if anyone remembers, he is on his phone. He turns the car and these 2 skateboarding brothers, one of them jumps in front of the car, unbeknownst to you as you're watching, to try to scam him. But he's a scammer himself. Don't bullshit a bullshitter. He catches on right away, and he calls them out on their acting. And he references Starlight Express in that little monologue. He's like, "You almost had me." I'm like, how is this coming? This shit always happens. It's such a weird deal. But 2 days later, there's another Starlight Express reference.
No coincidence.
So I was on the Wikipedia page.
No coincidences.
Fucking weird. It's weird.
It was so.
And now I do kind of remember what it. Yeah, it's a roller skating musical from the 80s, man. Really, really good show, obviously.
Okay. The season reflections, anything macro that you're especially inclined to improve upon your process for next year?
I'd say one of my, and again, like I did with the Bills, bringing up the Bills game, I'm trying not to dog on you, but something I did 6 times throughout the season was avoid betting on comeback player of the year.
Oh, sure.
As I wrote about it, I'm like,
sure.
You know what? Fuck this award. I'm not getting involved. And I didn't really.
Is that coming?
No, God, no. I really thought it was because we passed out ballots to everybody in the Discord. We're going to do a better job, do it after the season rather than after the championship games next year. But it was really close. And I'm like, man, just with it's funny because I was thinking about it with the ranked choice voting. Our voting was really close with Baker almost taking it. And I'm like, you know what? If Baker gets every single second place vote, some, 5, 6, 7 first place votes, and all the rest of them, it would have been interesting. Can he steal this? And then they give it to fucking Flacco. What are we doing? A week ago, he went on national TV and said, yeah, I don't think I should win that award. What did I do?
5 games.
He comes out and just says, what did I do? It was pretty crazy. I felt bad for GRP because he took such a path. But again, I think there's a very good case for just never betting that award because it's been established for 24 straight months. We don't really have a fucking clue what these voters are actually voting on, and they can, flip the switch. Other takeaways from award markets was the MVP market.
Very
2 years, 2 years in a row. The MVP market has flipped on its head with 4 weeks to go.
Yeah.
Something to kind of watch as far as is there a longer number on somebody who has a big leverage game?
Yeah.
Because Lamar a couple weeks before that was going to be 16, 18 to 1.
Yeah. He was 10 to 1 at Circa and they were taking 10K bets.
Before that Niners game?
The week before.
Sure. Yeah, a couple weeks back, I know it was one of those where I looked at it, did not bet it, but it was 20 to 1.
Yeah,
it's in one of the newsletters.
It was mid-season. It was a big old number, yeah. But it was a big number before Hurts and Mahomes kind of fell out of the picture, right? Yeah. Hurts was the heavy favorite at one point. He fell out of the picture, and then
2 years in a row.
Yeah, and then Mahomes fell out of the picture, and then it was down to like Purdy, and if something happens to Purdy, well, once Purdy slayed Dak, then it was like, okay, now this can happen. Now Mahomes can now Lamar can steal it from Purdy. It had to be in that order, right?
Yeah,
Purdy slayed Dak, and then Lamar
Dak
could do
was
it.
Dak was a thing for a hot minute. When it comes to rookie of the year, I think you can bridge jump / kind of chase steam if it's a quarterback. Like, hey, it's a wide receiver who had like 3 good weeks in a row, and now he's the second favorite. You don't want to bet that bad number. Hey, it's a quarterback who is getting better every week, and now he's even money. Maybe put a fucking bundle on that, because we love to give quarterbacks awards. Like, thinking back to when CJ Stroud was like even money for that award, it's like, just go back, watch some tape. Do you believe in this kid or not? If you do, fucking put a bundle on that, because a quarterback is, always going to get the benefit of the doubt in those kind of award markets. The only one I did hit, I bet offensive player of the year, I bet CMC, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Hurts preseason. I think CMC was 15. Didn't make up for some of the other rookie of the year bets I made, but it was one of those where Jefferson was in the conversation for a little bit. I wasn't happy he got hurt, but I was just looking at that. I'm like, this motherfucker repeats, because 4 weeks in, it was a 3-man race. That was it. It was those 3. And I'm like, man, I have 2 of these tickets, and this is not going to feel good thinking ahead 20 weeks. Obviously, had the, one of the winners. CeeDee Lamb, though. CeeDee Lamb kind of came on strong. I want to go back and look at like a bit of the historical markets and see about guys like that who he caught steam at the end of the year before. Yeah,
the problem is it's I see what you're saying. Yeah.
The problem is CeeDee Lamb got into the conversation, not enough to really be a threat.
Yeah.
Where he's at next year.
Yeah. I think this offensive player of the year is pretty clearly crystallized now. You need the top receiving and receiving yards wide receiver, and the top fantasy scoring running back. Those are the 2 guys who are going to battle it out every year.
Yeah, there's a pretty decent chance CMC wins it again.
Yeah.
If it's a similar offense, he doesn't get hurt, plays 17 games.
Yeah, he'll be the top scoring. He'll be at least in the final 2.
Yeah, he'll be
hold him up against the the premier wide receiver that year, and
whichever wide receiver.
The Myles Garrett win for me was a very lucky one in the end. You see how and actually we should talk about the closeness of the voting. Like, some of these markets closed like they were decided, and DPOY was very fucking close between Watt and Garrett. I got a ton of Garrett down because somebody kept betting back Parsons, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks left in the season. So I really needed that one badly, because I would have taken a double L there if Watt stole. And then
what was our preseason? What was our preseason handicap? Just 10,000 foot view on Parsons. What were the 2 points on Parsons? The 2 main points.
I honestly don't remember.
It was he's going to play on a defense that is considered very good.
Yeah.
And he's never won it before.
Yeah, right.
We just had the wrong
Garrett.
Garrett met those criteria. So I'm giving us credit. We nailed that handicap, just said the wrong name.
Yeah. The coach of the year was crazy because they tied. And then they broke the tie.
Just invented a tiebreaker. I could not find that anywhere in writing.
I could not either. I looked hard for that after the fact, because I was like, interesting. But yes, the tie was broken.
In hindsight,
it was a fine tiebreaker, but it was not clear that there was going to be a tiebreaker. It's still just hilarious that those guys ended up with the same total points in ranked choice voting. And yes, if they hadn't introduced ranked choice voting, DeMar Hamlin is your comeback player of the year. Also insane.
I think it should have been a tie for the coaches, because we've had precedent for that, where if you have the same amount of votes, when we only did one, first place vote, that was it. We've had co-MVPs in the past.
Yeah, it was Peyton Manning and Steve McNair were co-MVPs.
Yeah, I would have been fine with just giving it to both 50-50, guys.
Of course. All right. Final thought on.
Otherwise, why give those that weight for points? if they don't mean anything. You know,
I can't imagine.
A tie's a tie, baby.
One kind of final thought on, and I should have brought this up in the talk about the Super Bowl, but like, if the NFL wants to go ahead and have the Super Bowl in Las Vegas every year, go for it. Like, that place is so perfectly built for that event. It is almost tough to wrap your head around how ideal it is to have that many options for entertainment, that many options for food, that many, so many athletes who are more than happy to go and like be there, and like the number of people that showed up was like, absolutely ridiculous. And in general, like, it's a town that's made for entertaining. Like, that was an absolute no-brainer.
I get it, but at the same time, I don't think you have to like sell the Super Bowl like, oh, I'm not going.
No, I'm just saying for everybody who like is like there to help promote the event and make it a big deal. Like, I think like doing it in Miami is obviously warmer, and
New Orleans next year.
New Orleans is going to be cool as shit. I'm not saying they should only have it in Las Vegas. I'm just saying it was long.
Oh, it should be. It should be in the rotation where it's like,
my God,
it does seem to do this. Like, hey, we do Miami, we do New Orleans, we do California, we do. Hey, you built a new stadium, you get one.
Sure.
Hey, we're back to Vegas. Like, yeah, it should be there every 5 years.
It's such a convenient place to do that event.
And I guess it falls under the umbrella of, hey, you built a new stadium, you get a Super Bowl.
Yep.
Even Minnesota got one because they built a new stadium.
Yeah.
And it sucks up here in January and February. Not this year. We've had the
only. I believe it.
We haven't had snow on the ground for like a month. I have to drive an hour and a half to the airport in the morning. We're expected to get like 3 inches overnight.
Yeah, nice.
That's how that fucking works. Yeah. Brink says New Orleans, Miami, Vegas, 3-city rotation.
That would be just perfect.
Wouldn't hate that. Perfect. I've never been to the city of New Orleans.
LA is actually not a great place for the Super Bowl, ironically, because it is so fucking spread out. Yeah, and no one wants to be at that convention center downtown doing Radio Row. Like, get the fuck out of there.
I've very much enjoyed visiting Los Angeles.
You went to a good place.
but other than the one time we left to go to Santa Anita for the day, like, we didn't leave like a 10-block area,
No doubt.
We're just like, hey, we're in Manhattan Beach and this is where we're staying for 3 days. Like, we walked down to the shops to the pier and walked the other way to a restaurant, and that was kind of it. Like, the town, no offense to your town, but Los Angeles proper kind of sucks because it is so spread out.
Yeah. Final thoughts on it might as well be in
Pacific Palisades. Where is that? How long would it take you to drive to Pacific Palisades from
during rush hour? Hour 30. It's realistically, as the crow flies, 25 miles maybe.
I can get to the 3M from
so hard
in that amount of time, and
it's so hard to get there.
It's like from the bottom of the state to the middle.
Yeah, Pacific Palisades are beautiful. Obviously, it's like probably the most sought after speck of land in Southern California.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a point to make it down to New Orleans.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's gonna be cool. Year. That would be cool. The final thoughts on the season process. I wouldn't really change much. I leaned hard into sides this year and away from totals, and I'm very glad I did. I think we caught some macro stuff on totals though, with the way it was trending under over the first portion of the season. Being so effective was really fun. I need to completely revamp the way I do player level ratings and composition, because all the time I spent in the off season trying to come up with player level stuff, I tossed almost all of that after like 2 weeks, because it was just like, how in the world did I think this? Bengals offensive line is a great example. Like, those guys graded great last year by some metrics and not by others, and I kind of leaned in one direction, and I was like, God damn it, they suck. I
have some thoughts on that.
I just need to start over my entire.
It's definitely. I do think you need player level grades when evaluating stuff, but you also need positional grades, positional group grades. Sure. That are based on metrics that matter,
Yeah,
So,
you know what I mean?
like offensive line is a very good example of
Pressures
that.
and time to throw and stuff like
Using
that.
using
Yeah.
clean pocket, time to throw, pressure rates, pass rush win rates, using that sort of stuff rather than just like grabbing PFF grades or grabbing grades from other places and trying to evaluate like where does this guy sit relative to a league average player. I think a lot of it comes down to like how does this group play as a unit?
Yeah.
And there's some context there because if you took one offensive line and put them on a completely different team and a completely different offense with a completely different quarterback, I think things would obviously change a lot because of how that offense runs. If it's Miami and we're getting the ball out quick, guess what? Hey, the Miami offensive line might not grade out all that well.
Or no, vice versa.
It doesn't matter because
or they're grading out great because there's nothing's happening.
Understanding
the correlation between all that stuff is huge. Yeah, no question.
I think that's a good offseason project to start. Honestly, and like if I had to pick two to let's say I don't have time, Andy, I can't break down every positional group and stuff. I would start with the offensive line and the defensive secondary. Figure out what makes those tick, what you think matters, start looking at the data on that, and then go look at secondary coverage, group coverage, individual, pressure, just how often teams are throwing at certain guys, how they're playing when they're in dime nickel. I mean, everyone's in nickel all the time now, but you know what I mean? Like when they're in some of these sub packages, figuring out how these coverage units are playing, because I think a lot of that matters a lot more than some of the other stuff. You go break down how all the tight ends play and how much they matter. I don't know if you'll get nearly as far as if you concentrate on those two.
Yeah, a couple of lessons learned. I had tremendous value marrying EPA and success as opposed to just looking at everything through the EPA per play lens this year. I thought total EPA was also pretty valuable, even more than just looking at a per play basis for certain things. I thought the ability to kind of granularity, get granular on specific player combinations, quarterback, receiver, quarterback, running back. At a EPA per play level was pretty helpful. I'm pivoting away from just sort of blind looking at at Ben Baldwin's great site, Running Backs Don't Matter, like very useful for like quick. I need to be able to say something about this team in 5 seconds. Bang, here you go. In the last 4 weeks, bang, right? Like that's useful. But at the same time, like there is so much context lost in those, kind of global snapshots. And so being able to get more granular, I thought was very useful.
Then I think there are takeaways from that, though. If you see a team like, hey, they have a very bad EPA per play defensively against the run, but they also have the opposing team has a low success rate against them.
Sure. Yeah.
Go back and put some context to that. Are they giving up 2 really big runs every game? And then in general, most of the other stuff has been low success. Because there's some weird context to some of those stats too when you start digging in on that. That's interesting, and it kind of gets me to a spot too where I've started to look at. And this was something Rufus had talked about years ago when he was looking at some of his football stuff, and something I thought interesting that he would bring up a lot was just lost EPA on turnovers.
Sure.
Because that sort of stuff is not going to be, it's not going to continue. It's just not something that it's luck. Honestly, a lot of it, some of it comes down to, hey, you have a shitty quarterback and he throws a lot of interceptions.
There's two problems with it, which is it's overstated.
Yeah. Because it's just small. It might be 1 or 2 plays a game.
Yeah, it's overstated. It is assigned poorly, right? Like if you actually sat down and
saddling a quarterback with a pick six.
There were games where it was
tip
like,
ball.
Oh, Brock Purdy's worst play in this game was a completed 50-yard pass to Brandon Ayuk that he then fumbled at the goal line. Yeah. It's like, hey, you can't dock a guy for a 50-yard completion.
No, I understand. That's why I like to look at it from a team. You got to look at it from a team standpoint. And I mean, the Chiefs being a good example is like just they had a lot of lost EPA to turnovers during the season, and they cleaned it up, and suddenly they beat 3 really
penalties too. Yeah, penalties are not sticky. Turnovers not sticky once you get to the postseason for sure. I have I think that's about all I really had. I just really the hardest work I need to do in the off season is revamp my player level stuff, because boy, oh boy, was that that was preseason. Spent a lot of time on that and really just steered me in some weird directions that were ultimately not very fruitful. Watched a lot of tape this year that I hadn't usually. I'm kind of a pretty soft tape guy in general, just because I don't always know what I'm looking at, and so it's like a little bit wasted time. But there were so many new quarterbacks this year that in order to rate like a guy who's made one start, you kind of had to watch the tape. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would guess this was probably the highest number of different quarterbacks making meaningful number of plays in a given year that we've ever had. So watching tape was pretty helpful. I'm excited to continue to learn and lean into that. In fact, I might spend a good amount of my
NFL Plus.
Yeah, it was incredible.
It's so nice to be like, hey, here's like 3 games I didn't bet yesterday. And basically all I caught was a few plays in red zone. Like, I need to watch these to see like what the fuck happened in this game, because box score isn't going to take you everything. So
yeah, that was super useful. So,
I think that's good advice for anybody.
Actually, I kind of want to lean.
Spend the $80, get NFL Plus, and be able to rewatch, because they have those half-hour replays. You set aside a couple hours after the kids go to bed on Monday night, after the Monday night game, you can take in 2 games.
You know what?
Tuesday you catch a couple more, and suddenly you're really caught up on what happened. It's nice.
You know what I did in part in coming up with the nominations for rewatch of the year. I was kind of thinking about when I was picking those games, I was like thinking of homework for the off season. I was like, I want to kind of learn how to chart better, right? And just want to be able to rewatch a couple of those games, and with the ability of kind of being able to identify formations, being able to identify certain aspects visually, because I feel like that would be pretty valuable. And right now I can't do that. So I'm going to learn better. I'm going to learn ball this offseason, Andy.
No ball. I have a long list of projects. Obviously, one thing that's a good one to dig into, and I'm going to try to spend a little time, and I'm not the greatest at understanding the nuances of this, but there are, 10 teams? I don't have the actual number with new offensive coordinators or new offensive play callers, because it is the head coach.
Yeah.
Like, understanding the scheme difference that the team's going to come into I think defense is important too, but it's 2x. If these teams are changing offensive schemes, how you think that's going to kind of come to fruition with the players they have on that team, with the quarterback, most importantly, and maybe the experience of said play caller. So that's going to be some different stuff. Somebody's asking, what is the plan for NFL draft content? We'll have some for sure. We'll definitely dig into that. We got 2.5 months. We'll do a Wednesday show every week, and I'm guessing a handful of those will be strictly digging into who are these young men who will be joining our league this year.
I love it.
And where do you think they'll be drafted? And then kind of one last thing too, harkening back to Drew talking about the awards. The awards season starts today, guys. You in the chat who hasn't commented at all, you're behind the game, because comment of the year are both up for grabs. You have 50 weeks left.
That's right.
There's a lot of shows. There's a lot of halftime shows. There's a lot of preview shows. You'll have your chances, but you are behind the ball already, because we are coming to a close already on episode 1 of the eligible season. We're going to be taking notes after every podcast. Once we get to the season, we'll be doing a better job of keeping track. Like, hey, is this a game of the year rewatch? Was this the best shower fart game of the week? We'll have the awards show. I'm already pumped for it for next year. It's gonna take 3 levels. So
I love it.
Think about that.
I'm gonna also watch a lot of NBA. I'm way into it right now. Did you see
my squad won yesterday?
Excuse, did you see Wembanyama? He's on pace for a quadruple double. He's through 7 minutes, 14 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 blocks. He might get there tonight, man.
Somebody made a good case for him, rookie of the year, when it was evenish with Chet.
Sure.
Like, hey, his minutes restriction is probably going to get lifted here soon. You should probably bet all your money on this. And I took their advice.
Now,
I took their advice and put a little on it, but I regret not having the balls to go all in. And I should find that tweet, because kudos to that fucking guy. Like, they were, he hasn't won anything yet, but
it wasn't me. that sounds almost verbatim as something we said maybe in like late December.
Maybe it was you. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, it was like evenish. They were both about right around even.
I think the biggest bets I got on Wemby were plus 130, and it feels fake right now because he's minus $1 million, and rightfully so. Player. All right, let's wrap up here. Good show, good season. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Any feedback, always welcome. Whatever we can do to keep making the entertainment part of this better, we would love to. Well, we're going to continue to make our handicapping part better. That's the whole goal of this. So
I think I'm excited to do some interviews in the off season. I'm excited to do process. Like the blood got pumping when we started talking process stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was the direction we were going today. So I was pumped about that. I think we'll do more of that in the off season to help you get better at your week to week process.
Who'd you bet for Genesis?
JT.
Okay.
Wyndham Clark.
Okay.
Noonan talked me into a little bit of Zal. Now I gotta check my pending. It was like 75-1. So he's making this case in the show for Zal, like, man, like 50-60-1 open Chris, and it's like 74-30 or whatever. So what about like 70-1? Could we do that? Luda. Yeah, Oberg. Is this the first season? Is this the first episode of the new season or the season finale? I think the awards are the season finale, because that was better than the Super Bowl.
That was the season finale. That was the season finale for sure. All right, man. Well done. We'll catch you. We'll still do these weekly. Are you going to be? You're back from vacation next week?
Yeah, I'll be back Sunday night.
All right, we'll talk.
It's nice to not have to worry about like flying. I got to fly back early on Sunday so I can watch games.
Sure. So this is the bridge episode. The official off-season first episode is next Wednesday. We will talk to you.
This is week 0.
This is week 0. Guys. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up. I do need to mention, because I screwed this up, and this is supposed to be a mid-roll read, and I'm just going to tell Connor it was, that this week we are sponsored by our friends over at DraftKings.
Really?
Yes, they have a new product, which I'm working on finding right now. But yeah, they do have a new product, and it's a fun one, because I think it's like they've gotten into the pick'em game like a lot of these other companies have been. So I think this is one that's available in like fucking every state. Okay. So they do have a new user offer. I think you get $100 like stress-free play, where if you make your first bet on, I don't think you're even supposed to say bet, because it's a pick'em game. You know, you make your first wager entry, what have you, for $100. If
play
you
your
lose,
first contest.
You play your first contest, you get your $100 back. It is peer-to-peer. It's similar to some of those where more plays, you have potentials for higher payouts.
Play your first game of skill.
Yeah, it is a game of skill. So it's a pick'em style platform. You choose players to have more or less than certain statistical categories like passing, rushing, things like that. It's only available in 21 states. Look at me making just a mockery of the 50 states at this point. So, I'll take a look at it. I'll understand a little more about the product once we get into it. Do I have to read the phone numbers like they did on VSiN? That's so rough when they have to.
I have a couple of those pre-recorded.
I think the fact that they live in that it's in Las Vegas, they have to read all the phone numbers. I don't know, man. Just be responsible. 1-800-GAMBLER. If you have a problem,
if you play in Iowa, 1-800-BETS-OFF. If you play in Nebraska, 1-888 hot something. I can't remember what
hot. Why would it be hot?
I don't
if
know.
you if you seriously, if you think you have a gambling problem, you can DM me.
Sure.
And I'll give you a couple winners to get you out of that funk. I'm kidding. I will help you find the resources.
Play responsibly this offseason. You
please
cons.
be responsible.
Really, just
if you did it, that's the good disclaimer
risk,
that you usually put out there is this time of year is, hey, did you have a good NFL season?
Yes.
Don't think you suddenly are caught up on the NBA if you haven't been following it and donk it all the way up.
Guess what market is hard to beat? The NBA after the All-Star break. Guess what market is hard to beat? College basketball in February.
Yeah.
Guess what market is hard to beat? Baseball all year, golf all year. Like you're not going to roll into, some plus EV bets. I can pretty much promise you. So that said, we're not we're not your parents. We're not the police. Have fun. Just don't lose all your money.
Yeah. Don't gamble what you can't lose. That's the biggest part. See you guys.
Problem 1-800 bets off. They'll help you. I've been told.